prayer this evening?
Certainly.
Loving God, as we come together tonight for the city of Waterville, we pause to ask you to be with us and guide our way. May your spirit of peace surround all we say and do this evening. We ask for your strength to do what is best for the good of Waterville. Lord God, as servants of your people, we pray that you grant us a share of your wisdom. Amen.
Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Rosick?
Here.
Mr. Pedro?
Here.
Mrs. Duncan?
Here.
All right, next we have our approval of minutes from our regular council meeting March 26, 2018. Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll abstain as I wasn't here. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next we have our citizens' comments, and I've got a couple up here. First I have Sean Crandall. Yes, if you wouldn't mind stepping to the podium and give your name and address for us, please, for the record.
My name's Sean Crandall. I live at 838 Maple Lane. And I have some questions and concerns about how the city selects subcontractors for the mowing that is subcontracted out. Does the city require it to be an LLC in order to be selected for the lawn mowing?
Say that again.
Does the city require the company to be an LLC,
LLC.
or higher, so to speak? Okay.
No, I didn't answer your question.
I don't know.
I don't know. I wanted to understand your question, so
You talk fast.
say it again.
Does the city require the company that's selected to be an LLC, like as a sole proprietor sufficient, as long as it's a fully licensed and legal and insured business? to be selected?
I'll let our law director answer. I just want to make sure I understood the question. Thank you.
Well, I understand what an LLC corporation and a proprietorship is, but I have nothing to do with the awarding of lawn mowing within the city. So
I thought you did. I thought you were in charge.
The answer is no.
Okay, fair enough. Does the city take just the lowest bid, or are there other factors considered?
We do not have to take the lowest bid. We're able
Yeah.
to take whichever bid.
Okay.
By law.
Does the city put any consideration on citizens or businesses that are registered within city limits, try to support local companies and citizens?
We usually go out for bids. I don't know when the last time we have gone out for the bid on that.
I was
We used to
informed
mow-
that I was informed that this isn't over $50,000, so it doesn't have to be put out for like public bid every time. But just wondering if that was a factor to be considered to support citizens
Right.
and businesses.
That's not a requirement.
Right, it's not a requirement, but I was
Right.
wondering if it was just something.
Yeah,
that was
we always welcome as
considered, I
many
guess.
people to
Okay.
submit their bid, though.
Good.
Even if you have a current person doing it, you should always
Right, fair enough.
still submit your info.
And is this is it a sealed bid, or are they all is it open at one time, or are they all taken together?
It's not a sealed bid.
It's not a sealed bid? Okay. The reason that I ask is because I submitted a bid 3 years ago that turned out to be what was it, $155, approximately $155 per cut, cheaper than what was currently being used, which at 28 cuts per season saves the city about $4,000, and was not given consideration or selection, and was wondering why that was. I've gotten past reports from the mowing that's taken place here over the past 5 years from the Mosman brothers, and their prices have been stagnant for the last 5 years. And all of a sudden this year it appears that their price changed after I submitted my bid. I'm the president of Crandall's Quality Lawn Care LLC, business registered in the city limits. And it just seemed to me that they were given my bid after their price has been stagnant for 5 years. And then all of a sudden their price drops. I have the reports here. I don't know if I can pass them out.
That's fine.
So I have this. I brought some for the councilman. I didn't realize the rest of you guys were going to be here.
That's fine.
So that's 2018 for Mosman's. This is the other years for Mosman's in between, but they're all the same. So this is 2015 for Mosman's. This is 2015 for me, and this is 2018 for me. And there's 7 copies of all those. And what you'll stagnant for the last 5 years, as I said. You remove the 4 areas that are no longer being mowed by a subcontractor, which is the bridge, the old school property, the Bear Park Islands. That takes $170. That takes $170, I think it was, away from their price. That puts their price at $513 per service. And then this year, after I submitted by bid, their bid went down to $467 per service. It just doesn't seem, it seems like somehow that my number got passed along to them so that they knew to be lower than my number.
Well, we will look into it and take your information. I don't have any of the answers to that tonight, though, so, but I appreciate you bringing the information.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Bagdonis, but we'll look into it and we'll definitely get back to you. We have your number on here?
Yes.
Okay. All
Thank you.
right. Thank you, Mr. Crandall. Next, we have Elaine Parrish. If you don't mind stepping to the podium and state your name and address as well.
Hi, my name is Elaine Parrish. I live at 7027 Shadow Ridge Drive in Waterville. The reason I asked to speak is I hope that you've all received my letter. It's about Prairie Trail Park, unfortunately. My letter is written because I know tonight you're voting on renewing the contract. And as somebody in Parks and Recreation, I was good with that. And if it goes along as it did in the fall, I would still be good with it. It was great in the fall. My concerns are there's red flags that are coming up in the past couple weeks. And the last one was yesterday when there was a practice on a Sunday. And the contract states very clearly the scheduled practices are Monday through Friday from 5 to 7:45 p.m. I just feel that's a blatant disregard. It's a breach of contract. You have the authority to do whatever you want with it. I just really wanted to go back to the way it was in the fall. I think it was fair, it went really well, and I just feel like there's red flags coming, and I just don't want them to happen. The neighbors around me are coming to me because they don't feel like they're being heard. And I don't want to be the police officer of the field. I really don't. I just want the kids to practice their soccer and do it in the time allotted, park where they're supposed to, put the nets where they're supposed to because they're still not moved. And if they can't be moved, that's fine. Ask for an amendment. And how we make that happen quickly, I don't care. I want, because I know, I've been on church committees. You ask something and it takes 6 weeks to happen. By that time, their practice schedule is going to be done. I don't know how we can make that happen quickly for them, but I really just am seeing red flags and I'm really concerned. And really, when you read the contract and you see what I've written in the letter, it's gone against contract. And it seems like the football club's not following it, and the city is not making them adhere to it. So I'm asking you tonight to seriously consider what's going on and how do we make it happen so the soccer club can still practice, my neighbors will be happy, like they were in the fall, and we make the contract so nobody's breaking the contract. And I don't know how we do that, but I'm asking you to seriously consider that. I just want Prairie Trail Park to be a happy place for everybody. The kids get their soccer practice, and my neighbors are happy, and they were in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Parrish. We did get your letter by email, and then tonight, since it was on there, Mr. Pollock's here, so he could probably come up and speak to the points that you had in your letter. If you want to do it now, we could do that. Do you have some information on that? All right.
Mayor?
We did pass that on though, so we could amend it or what we need, but we need to hear what, we asked him to have some responses for that.
Andy Pollock, 7848 Dana Ray Drive, representing Metro FC. I received the email today stating that there was a practice yesterday. I was unaware of it, so I immediately emailed our president and club director. Evidently what happened is the girls U12 blue team has a brand new coach, and he had a practice on a Sunday. He thought that only games were not allowed to play on there. He has been firmly told today after we got that email that he can not do that, and the apology to council. I emailed you all today and apologized for that, and I said that was the first time and that'll be the last time if there's a practice on a Sunday. In regards to the parking and traffic and all that, I have not seen a difference. I just dropped my daughter off at practice tonight. There's not one car in the parking lot, not one car on the street. I actually sat there and with my window down for a little bit, and I mean, you can't even hear them. I think it's running smoothly. They are utilizing the fire station. They're utilizing Waterville Primary. Like I've said to you in the past, there are a select few parents that are they have to sit there the entire time and they choose to sit in the parking lot, or if it's one or two cars, that's what it is. In regards to the field layout, we talked about it at the Parks and Rec meeting. Immediately, we looked at the map that I made, and, it's kind of a rough draft. I mean, it's not like I walked out there and measured every single inch of the park. When I left that Parks and Rec meeting that night, when I was told that the goal is in the middle of the park, I'm like, no, it is not. It has not moved since the fall. I went there and I took a picture of it. I sat there and looked where the goal was at. The goal is on the far left side of the parking lot. Today I sent you, the goal sits over 440 feet away from the neighbor's property line. I don't know how much further we can go. We've actually condensed it down to 2 fields in a couple small goals that are kind of moved around into different areas. So we're not even using the part of the park that's up by Waterville Monclova, and there's still plenty of space by the parking lot and way over. If we need to move the goal further towards the sled, we can do it, or sledding hill, we can do it. I mean, not very much further. I mean, it's maybe 5 feet because of the unplayable space over there. And today when I got there, it kind of irked me a little bit. In the fact that I pulled up the map of every park in this city. How close those neighbors are to the parks. The baseballs are flying, and tennis balls are flying, and this and that are flying. It amazes me that there are a select few. I live in the same neighborhood, so I don't like to be associated with the people that call it our residents of the neighborhood, to be honest with you. Because there's probably more residents in the neighborhood that love it being there. The problem with Sunday won't happen. Won't happen again. We won't have a practice. But my question is, if my daughter, who is a Metro soccer player, grabbed 12 of her soccer friends and went out there to play soccer on a Sunday afternoon, would it be a problem? It's a park. That's we breached, and I got it, and it's fixed. Everybody knows it. The new coach knows it. It won't happen again. But it just seems like a small contingency of people have kind of the out for us, and I don't think it really has anything to do with somebody using the park. And that is my personal opinion, like I stated in that letter to you.
I have
Please ask me if any other
couple
questions or
questions.
things that we could do to make it better.
We have, so the one was covered, the practice that happened on Sundays, not allowed. On the field layout, we had pulled the original one out, and the map that you had sent today where they were, was a different, I think it was just offline. But number 3 is down from the parking lot, right? To the direction am I going? It's not in front of the parking lot, so maybe you can explain
The
it,
map
Jim. I've
that's,
attached to
the
the
map
agreement.
that's attached to tonight's resolution is the same exact map that we have in the current.
Did I attach the wrong one?
Okay, that's Exhibit A that's in the new agreement is the same exact Exhibit A as in the agreement that's going to expire this year. That is different than what you emailed today.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So I
I thought
guess
you-
which map is to be attached to the new agreement? Is it the map from the current agreement that's ready to expire, or the new map that you emailed today?
The one I emailed today was kind of to show you how we have it set up, like, right now.
Okay.
Because the complaint is about the one goal that is close to the parking lot.
And your map that you sent us today shows it closer or farther east than the original map.
By a little bit. I mean, I don't know how far.
Yeah, like I said,
That is.
it's a rough, I mean, it was a rough draft back then. It's a rough, I mean, it's to the left of the parking lot.
And
Is
then
what
the
we're trying to
original-
give as much space away from the neighbors as we possibly can give.
The original map had 3 fields, and the map today has 2.
Correct, because we've kind of, that's what I said, we're only using like 2 spaces now.
So I guess that's a question, though. Should this
Be redone.
map from today be the one attached to the new agreement?
I don't foresee us using the space up towards Waterville, Monclova again. Now, if I need to make a new one for that, I mean, I was unaware of having to make a new map. The one I sent you guys today was just basically showing you, kind of rebutting of where, I mean, kind of how it's set up right now.
Well, we
It's-
were planning on using a new map, but the one you sent today is different than the one we have been using.
I mean, I would rather just keep the one that we've been using. I was just kind of, the
Fine.
new one was kind of like, this is how we have it set up right now. If the goal's 10 yards or 10 feet further to the east, I
Okay.
mean,
That was.
So you answered the question.
Yeah.
The old Exhibit A is still the one that should be attached.
correct,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes. Got it, sorry.
And then the other one on the parking, the only thing I was thinking too is you may have do you have new kids come in, so you probably have to let them know, park at the fire station.
In the
and
spring,
the
in the
store.
spring is when we have the high school teams come back.
Right.
So there are some new ones.
Just, I'm
Um,
sure you send out stuff to them to remind them.
We send a weekly email out about
Tell the
parking.
coaches.
But I think the older ones they are required to park at Waterville,
And
primary and walk.
Okay,
If there's anybody sitting around, it's usually one with
little,
a smaller one.
yeah. Because that helped with the, like Mrs. Parrish said, that helped in the other season with the, not having the traffic as much on that street. There'll be a couple cars in there, I'm sure, or somebody dropping. I could see myself, I would probably drop someone out.
I won't lie to you, that's where I mean, I come from my neighborhood and
If someone is hanging out
there's
there,
nobody
it
there and
isn't.
it's like,
But like how it was at the beginning, were too many cars. But yeah, I think having a couple is not a big deal. Yeah, especially if you're watching your kids. But
Yeah.
but if they can start parking like they did, that was kind of nice. It split the parking up, so it wasn't as congested. So
yeah, because it was
I think
getting
that
congested.
addresses that though.
It was getting congested a little bit at the fire station, so we're trying to
that too. Yeah.
get them out into both spots.
But you have less fields out there. So
and-
that'll help.
You know, we have the church, our whole boys program stays down there. In the past 5 days, I've already, oh, I thought she was with me. I've already organized with 3 Anthony Wayne youth soccer teams that are sharing our goals and sharing our fields during the week for, this is going on, trying to build a relationship with the
The
Anthony
local-
Wayne Club
Oh,
Soccer.
so they're able to use it.
And
okay.
we have 3 teams out there now practicing right alongside Metro at the church.
Okay.
That is running very smoothly.
Good.
So, yeah.
More spaces for more kids. Okay. Sorry, down here,
Yes.
someone had a comment.
I was in the parking lot.
Uh-oh. Were you dropping some?
No, I was tryrying to figure out the map.
Oh, okay.
So I went and I was there while they were playing, so it could have been me. Guilty as charged.
Tonight?
No,
Oh, the other
Last
night?
week.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
so anyways,
Oh,
it could have been me. Sorry.
Mr. Pedro, did you have some comments?
Well, 2 things. I was going to first address Mrs. Lance, right? Parrish, excuse me.
Mrs. Parrish.
Mrs. Parrish, thank you for taking time to bring it to our attention. And thanks to Andy for quickly, I guess commenting back. I trust that the Parks and Recreation looked at this a couple weeks ago and made, had recommendations, had comments. And so I'm satisfied that it was a mistake made. It wasn't, I guess, malicious, intentional. So I'm in favor, I think as you are, to make sure it's conducted like it was last fall. And knowing Andy being here these last few times, if there are some things that come up, at least you and your team address them. So unless there's something else,
I just wanted to address when you talked about the Sunday practice.
Need to go to the microphone.
can you go up?
Yeah, just because you're
We
televised
can't
there.
hear ya.
The first time, I was out of town when that was addressed to me, and I said, "Are you sure there isn't just a bunch of kids practicing?" It was very clear. I said, because anybody can go over there and practice. I've seen boys' teams go over there and practice. And they said, "I'm not sure." And I just happened to drive home at the end of the practice and saw it. And I'm so glad Andy said that was fine. I just want the contract to be followed. It just, there's my neighbors, and it's not just the neighbors on that street. I've heard a couple complaints just from my friends in the neighbor who live more where Andy lives, going, what's with the cars? And I'm like, hey, okay. I just want it to be followed into the fall. I think it worked really well. I understand if a mom has to pick up her kid and they have to go in that gravel, a kid gets hurt, they're sick. You can't keep people out of the gravel. That's fine. I just want it to be safe. I see little kids crossing the street, and that really bothers me. As a mom, I would get out for my soccer kid and go get them. But as long as everybody's taking care of it, if they're parking on Buckeye because they have to go, it's okay. I'm not hearing complaints from Farmview. Very happy of that. I just want it to be followed, and I want it to be adhered. And I feel like our neighbors weren't being heard, and nobody's watching the contract. And I don't know whose job that is, but it needs to be followed. And fall worked out great. Let's keep it that way till they can get their whole soccer field set up on 24, and let's just keep it going. Because fall, everybody in my street said that was good. That's what I want. I don't want to hear about it. I just want everyone to get their soccer practices in, and for my neighbors to be, yep, it's fine. If the fields are where they're supposed to be, that's fine. And like I said, if the soccer nets have to be moved closer to me where they are now, it doesn't bother me. But it is a legal contract. It can't be willy-nilly. It has to be adhered to. So if the nets need to be where they are, the contract needs to state that. And that's what I'm just adhering to. It can't just be, well, it's kind of set up that way. No, because that's where the mistrust comes in again. And we're trying to build trust with my neighbors, not just with Metro, but with council and Parks and Rec. And so it really needs to be, this is where the nets are and this is where we're gonna keep them, and so nobody can complain. That's what I want.
Right,
So
there is a
everyone's
map
happy.
attached that we were speaking of that was with the last contract,
Right.
so we can
And
always make sure.
that's one complaint. It's not where it's
Right.
supposed to be. I understand that hill is an issue.
Right, the
I
garages.
understand if he wants to practice and that hill's in the way, it's a safety concern for their players. So let's add an amendment to the contract. It needs to be moved and we need it here. To me, when I look at it, I get it. I don't mind where the nets are. But let's add an amendment. Let's do a new picture and make sure it's where it's supposed to be. So everybody's happy.
Yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
right. All right, thank you. Any other comments from council on that?
No, thank you.
It's coming up later in the agenda, since we're on that one. All right, any other public comments, citizens' comments?
I guess I'd like to have Elaine and Andy look at this. This is the map that we looked at Parks and Rec. Can you guys come up here and confirm that? It's a little different structure, but this is the same map.
That's the map they had, isn't it? It's the same map that you had at Parks and Rec.
This is what.
This is added.
Because they think it's over here. And
Yeah,
for
I
me,
know, I mean,
concern-
I get it.
And my concern is, if it's supposed to be there, that's fine, but if this is an issue, send a map and
It's-
say it needs to be over here, and I'm cool with that.
This is all unplayable.
Right,
It's the hill.
and then I
So
saw
to put
tonight
this is
some
like-
girls playing here, and I thought, is that okay? Because they were more, it seemed like they were more here. I'm like, ooh, that didn't look right. Was I wrong?
There wasn't anybody over there when I dropped my daughter off.
When I just came to the meeting, I'm like, I
Is
thought
that,
this
I
was
guess the
something-
question
mean,
for
it's
tonight's
still-
meeting is
I mean, it would still be.
is that where the fields are located, Andy? The two?
Yeah, like, so
Okay.
right now, we're
One-
not
This
even
is not
using
even
that.
being played.
We're not even playing that. So
Right.
this is more, this is where our goal is.
Okay.
Instead.
So we're talking,
I don't even know.
Okay. All right.
And to me, like I said, if you guys are okay
Do you
with
want it
it,
amended or
I
just?
personally am okay with it.
Okay. With that, we'll just yes.
and slide that over.
I would suggest
over here for the.
I was,
The goal's right there.
I would,
Okay.
I'm asking you to.
A little bit.
in the interest of
All right.
peace.
Any other questions? Well,
So is
that'll
there
be
gonna be
later.
a new map or not?
I'll redo it and I'll send it to you tonight.
Okay.
We can still pass that with the amendment.
Yeah.
Well,
All right,
Pass it
real quick, I
with
just wanted
map
to,
as amended.
okay.
it is not easy to come, Elaine. I know it is difficult to stand up for what you believe in, but we support you in doing that. This is your community, and it's important to find these points where we can come together, and I respect that, so thank you for coming.
All right. We will vote on that, but that's further down the agenda, so thank you for the information, both of you. Moving on to staff reports, we have our administrator, Mr. Bagdonis.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members have a copy of my report. Would like to touch on one item. As I think many of you are aware, all elected officials or their, quote, appropriate designees are required to attend a 3-hour session put on by the State Attorney General's Office on Ohio's public records law during each term of office. And in the past, council members have designated me as being the appropriate designee. So unless you're planning on attending one of these 3-hour seminars yourselves, I would suggest you may want to make such a designation by motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Any questions for Mr. Bagdonis? Any comments? All right. Seeing none, we have our law director.
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Our finance director.
Evening. Council has my report. It's for February 2018, the month-end report for 2018. We ended the month of February with an ending balance of $5,005,845. We had investment income at the end of February of $7,369. February and March RETA reports are enclosed. For February, we collected $255,247 in income tax, which you'll notice is about $12,788 less than we collected in February of 2017. For March, the city collected $197,020 in income tax, which again was less than we collected in March of 2017 by about $7,400. Year-to-date, the city has collected $773,043. So February and March, our collections were a little bit lower than in comparison to February and March of 2017, but we did have a good January 2018, so that puts our collection, year-to-date collection, ahead of the first 3 months of last year by approximately $42,049. So we are doing a little better than we were at this time last year. The end of February, we collected approximately 22.29% of our budgeted income tax revenue for 2018. And the filing deadline for village income tax is April 17th, 2018.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gokenauer? I look forward to April report. Thank you. Next, we have our treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. As Mr. Gokenauer mentioned, our February income tax was relatively consistent with the prior months, with prior Februaries. But our total cash is up about $250,000. And that's primarily because we collected about $200,000 of our real estate taxes in February. So looks it's a little skewed when you look at it, but that's the reason. So you can see again, our overall funds are up about $250,000. Our general fund's up $300,000 correspondingly. Our capital fund's up a little bit. Water fund is down slightly because we had about $100,000 payment on the wastewater treatment plant. So again, it all makes sense. So again, still holding well right now, about $5 million.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Schultz?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have our police chief.
Council members. All right, we're Coming up on our spring drug take-back day, it'll be on the 28th, from 10 to 2 as it normally is. And I haven't seen the sites this time, but if they hold true to form, it'll be Kroger, Monclova Fire, and White House Fire. I don't know if we're using the fire station this time. We did not order the last one. And in the past, they've always done a news conference about this, and they've always seemed to do it downtown. So I guess we kicked and screamed enough, they finally listened. So this year, on Thursday the 26th, they'll do the pre-drug take-back news conference. And they'll be doing it out here at Kroger, so we'll get a little exposure. And we do contribute significant weight to what they take in, usually several hundred pounds of pills that we collect between our take-back box and then drug take-back day. So that'll be out here on the 26th at 10 o'clock at Kroger. And just to make sure we have plenty to do on the 28th, also they're doing another, we did this last year, Coffee with a Cop from 10 to 2 on that same Saturday, the 28th. That'll be at the Buzz over in White House. So we'll have officers covering both. And the only other thing is Officer McConnell has completed his FTO cycle. Now he's on his own and on the shift he's going to be parked on for the rest of the year, which is afternoons. And seems to be doing an excellent job settling right in. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
Just
Yes.
Because I want to make sure, on the 28th from 10 to 2 in White House.
At the Buzz. The Buzz. They're on Providence Street.
Thank you.
Is that the 28th or the 26th?
28th.
28th.
They're both
Saturday
on
the
the
28th. The news conference is 26th, drug take back, and Coffee with a Cop on the 28th. Coffee with a Cop is, I think, it's 10 to 12.
Okay.
Is that White House, Waterville
Yes,
Township?
it'll be like it was the last time we had it over at Papoose.
Yep.
It'll be, pretty much over the State Patrol, the Sheriff's Department. Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have our Fire Chief.
Good evening, everyone. You have a copy of my report for the month of March. Right now, our runs are 9 incidents below what they were last year on this date. But this past weekend, we're going to be catching up. We had 3 runs in a row, which is unusual for us. Our staffing right now, we have paid per call, which are volunteers. There are 11 of them. And people that do dual work, paid per call and part-time are 5. And our true part-timers are the ones that come in from outside the city to work there's 16 now. I'm hiring one more paper call, one volunteer tomorrow. He's gonna come in and do his paperwork. The ironic part was I gained one 2 months ago. He graduated from Ohio State a year ago. And he walks into my office the other day and says, well, I got a job with the Secret Service and I'm going to the White House. So I wish him the best of luck. Usually when I take applicants that are law enforcement, they have a tendency to jump ship and go back to law enforcement, which is, I don't have control over. But right now our staffing needs a little fine tuning, but we're doing fairly well. Our staffing's coming back where it should be. Also currently I'm working with Mr. Bagdonis on through the Civil Service Commission and Mr. Gokenauer for our full-time position. Will be a civil service test on that coming up soon. And they'll take it online. We won't have to do any paperwork for that. So it'll be the National Testing Network, which is how they'll take it. So that will close on May 25th if it goes through Civil Service Commission without any problems. So there's one other item, and it's on the agenda already for the Fire District feasibility study. I answer questions for that later on if you have any. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions for the Chief? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Public Works Director, Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You have a copy of my report. We also have a update on all the current projects. I don't think I got to go into that. They're pretty much forward. If you have any questions. Also, you've got a copy of the new 2018 paving program and crack filling. Those are the 2 roads we picked out, the entire length of Melody Lane as well as a short section of Breathless Drive. I do want to mention, though, that John Gokenauer and I did administer a civil service test last week, and we're waiting on the results from the folks in California, I believe is where the test goes. So that's all I had, unless you have any questions.
Is that to fill the position that was a while ago that
Yes.
someone left?
Correct.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to pass along, I know Reagan Sawyer had recommended a gate at Waterworks Park, and your team had put that in with the help of the rest of the committees, and she wanted me to thank you profusely. She's very happy with the gate.
Yeah, the police department will be opening and shutting at dawn dusk. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have communications from council. We'll start with Mrs. Duncan.
No report this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Pedro?
A couple of things. We met Barbara Bruno and myself along with the Public Safety Committee, and we had a very lively discussion. And just to highlight some of the questions or concerns, one of the members was asking about the process of procedure for street lighting within the city, and what's the process. He felt that maybe some street lights were out in some of the neighborhoods. So I don't know if does Edison or do we go down monthly, annually, make a recording of street lights that are out? How's that done?
Good question.
Well, anyone can report a street light out. I know the police do, citizens do. In fact, there's a link on our website to Edison to report street light outages directly to them.
Okay, so we have I wasn't able to answer, so we got a process, all right. And then the other thing, my question is, at what point do we think about LED lighting versus the previous lighting? Is that something that we should or are looking at?
Well, it's not anything that's actively being looked at. There are tariff rates for each kind of light.
Okay.
Even though LEDs may be better from an energy standpoint, they may not be less expensive from a cost standpoint to us, because Edison amortizes the cost of the fixture over the life of the light. And there are different rates depending if it's a steel, fiberglass, or wood pole, if it's overhead or underground wiring. There's dozens of tariff rates for the street lights.
Okay. And then the other thing is that there was a considerable amount of discussion about the budget process, and specifically some of vehicles, and how council debated and decided back and forth on the ambulance, and obviously we went forth and funded that, or approved it rather. The question was on the assistant chief's vehicle. So Chief Womble and I have not spoke since that meeting, but I will be coming back to council with some more comments. The committee felt strongly about making sure that the vehicle was accurately functioning, and we believe it is, but I want to be able to go back to that committee, let them know council looked at that again. And then to Barb's credit, we did discuss, it's a tough task. You only have so much money to spend, and you got personnel and you got equipment, and we also at that time were just getting into the conversation about perhaps a regional fire service. How much do you want to fund now in terms of vehicles, and later on decide that you may not need them. So I think it was good conversation, but I felt that the committee wanted to have some more input going forward. Barb, anything else that you wanted to comment on?
No, I think you had it pretty good.
So, and then the other thing, if I may, Mayor,
Yes.
tomorrow morning at 7:30, the Economic Development Committee is having a workforce development meeting. This is geared towards businesses in the community and on the outside to come and learn about Lucas County's efforts to help retain workers for your workplace, and we look forward to a nice roundtable discussion tomorrow. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Rosick?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a comment. I know we've been talking about the trash on Prairie Boulevard, and I happened to catch the news on Saturday, and the volunteer cleanup was a spot on one of the channels. I don't know which channel it was exactly, but very nice news coverage. Although it's not the kind of coverage necessarily you want in Waterville, to promote the collection of debris in the fields, but I think they did a nice job cleaning it up. I don't know where it stands, but we'll probably have some more discussions about it as we go forward, but I just wanted to mention that the Waterville was in the news.
I agree with you. You don't want to be in it for that. Just a little bit of follow-up. We had a little bit of discussion about it. There are a lot of factors going on out there. If you think about it, a year ago, some of it's weather dependent, but a person living on that side of town, I can tell you it is always windy on the edge of town, especially where that is. The construction ramped up. There are a lot of open roll-off bins with trash, and if you come up Prairie Boulevard, there was actually things I was noting that they needed to pull out of the ditch, things that have blown all over out there, construction. Then you throw in Devonshire's retail development. That's fairly new this year, being full. And we addressed the dumpsters with them and how often they pick them up. If the lids are closed, which are basics, but you know, you got to tell people to do these kinds of things. And then the recycle came into play. I was up there last night for Kroger, and each one was so full that it actually could not close. So, you know, that's part of the issue. For those who are newer to town, that used to be at Public Works, and we used to have a lot of issues with the recyclables there because a lot of people left things they shouldn't have not inside the receptacles. So actually, when it moved out to Kroger, it's now on Kroger's property. It's not really a city thing. It's recyclable from Lucas County on their property, so it's up to them. It was very, very nice that someone took such an initiative, the chiropractic business, and they did a fantastic job, which I'm personally going to thank them for because they got tired of looking at it. It's also in the other fields off of Prairie Boulevard as well. It's all over out there. But I guess what I'm telling you is there's a combination. You have a lot of construction going on. You have the recyclables full, too full, and you have a lot of new businesses in the strip mall next to Kroger. So. And the wind is always out there. I hate to tell you guys, but it's always windy out there. So as I put in a couple comments, I think one thing we have to do is talk to Lucas County about the whole recycling thing. As you know, if you're a citizen of Waterville, we have recycling with your trash. So we are covered as people that live in Waterville. We have recycling that you pay for, you know, on your trash bill, or with your water bill, I should say. So, you know, that part's covered for our citizens. That's kind of extra up there, and I know they get a lot of outside people bringing their things there, which is nice. But I do know the staff has contacted and talked to Kroger and everything, but we're going to keep on delving into it. It's not finished yet. But we have to decide what works best. We definitely cannot have anything that blows trash up out there into farmers' fields all around town and around the businesses. So it's not a look that we want to go for. So that's what we're doing to this point. But it is interesting if you think we didn't have that problem the last 3 years before that. But you've got so many things going in right there. So something that will have to be addressed.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mary.
Yep. Mr. Fry.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Mrs. Bruno.
No report, Your Honor.
Mr. Bruno.
No report.
All right. I do have one for you guys. So we've talked about the fire district feasibility study on and off here a little bit, especially during our budgeting season. What we've been doing for a while now is the administrator and myself have met with White House and their administrator and mayor, and we grew the group to other local areas, the Waterville Township, which White House and Waterville service. They have a contract with each of us. We also reached out to Monclova Township. They have a fire department, and Providence Township. And we did have a meeting where we brought all of us together at the first one, and we invited our administrator help research people who do feasibility studies for regional fire departments. And there were two groups that we found. One was with, he is actually his own company, K&A Consulting, Bill Kramer. And he came on March 19th, and we were able to have the groups I mentioned together there, representatives from those groups. And he was able to give a presentation of what they offer and what they provide. And then we also invited Stan Crosley of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. The only difference in the two meetings, the one was held March 19th, the other was April 4th, to get information and have a presentation. At the first one, Monclova was unable to attend, but they were at the last one on April 4th. We had a presentation by both of those groups, and everybody was interested after hearing from these consultants. And what that would do would give us a feasibility study, which would study the
all the aspects of having some sort of fire or fire and EMS district. At the end of the meeting, all the municipalities decided that they would like to go back to their councils and township trustees and by motion get the interest to see if the council and trustees will be interested in going forward with a feasibility study. The specifics we would get, we don't have the specifics and numbers yet. They gave us some estimates. It wasn't too bad of a price. We'll get the exact prices before we would do that. What we would need tonight is if everybody would be interested, and just by a motion, that we would be ready to move forward as the city of Waterville to be with this other group of people, Monclova Township, Waterville Township, and White House, and Providence Township. I did not miss anybody, right? Got them all. And I think it's a good idea. My personal opinion, we've watched fire. Our fire department does a fantastic job, but we've gone from a strong volunteer department, or as they call it, the pay-per-call, I believe, to putting more money in the budget for part-timers, and we're now trying to hire our third full-time person. The other surrounding communities are having the same issue. We back each other up as is now, and the county helps us out here. And in fire situations, we have mutual aid. So it'd be a nice next step to do the study and see where it stands. And it can come back and say that's a terrible idea, or it could come back and say that's a great idea. But we thought it would be a good first step, so we want to present that tonight. If you have any questions that we could answer, or this step would only allow us to go get the information. We're all going to meet back together in a couple weeks, I believe, and see what everybody's group said. And then at that point, we would have the actual numbers for everybody.
Mayor, when is that next meeting scheduled? Is that already scheduled?
I bring that with me. I think we said, I don't think I brought that calendar with me, Tim.
I think it's April 19th.
April 19th. Yeah, we had a big discussion what day we could all do it. But yeah, that's what we'd like to bring back. So I'd just like to get your thoughts, and if so, we can do a motion. So it doesn't commit you yet. We are not signing anything.
Did they indicate how long the study would take to complete?
They're both very different, but
The feasibility study, probably 5 to 6 months.
6, probably.
And I think the indication that's being asked tonight is not a firm commitment, but we need to go back to a consultant to prepare a proposal, and they need to know who's in and who's out at this stage.
Sure.
Once the proposal is prepared, there would be another step for each of the entities to say, okay, we've seen the proposal, now we know what the cost is, and then we need to know how many entities to divide that number by. We talked about taking the number, just dividing it equally among the participants. So there will be another opportunity once we have the proposal, the price proposal in hand for council to decide if at that point you want to go forward with it.
And depending on the size, who's in or who's out, you know, that will, all the people I named will take longer if it's a bigger area versus, not a lot longer, but just saying, the bigger study, more people.
So maybe, not get too far ahead of the curve, but if we went out 9 months, as an example, and backed up from there, so 9 months, do the math.
It's like January.
January 1, February 1, when there might be some clarity, because we'll be in our budget process late next year, or late this year in the fall. So we don't have the same conversations about, you know, apparatus and equipment will maybe a little more clear.
The study would actually look at some equipment. I mean, they'll do a thorough study of each department that's interested. So we would know a lot more.
Sure.
You would know a lot more after reading the report, because they should give you indications of what's required and what, you know, what they feel is reasonable.
Well, part of the study, though, is looking at the assets that each of the entities is bringing to the table. And of course, some of them have fire departments, some don't. Those that have fire departments are bringing more assets, and that will need to be factored into how the district is first put together.
Right.
I guess my point was just that we'll have some clarity in 9 months or thereabouts, at least more clarity.
Probably not in that budget. To be honest with you, we'd probably operate as we are now with, I mean, obviously something very large, we might want to think hard if it was a large fire truck, but I guess what I'm saying is, you'll still be operating your fire department in the next year, in my opinion.
Okay.
We did talk a little bit, but this would be jumping ahead, like how, because they were explaining to us proposals they've done, things they've worked on, how long it takes, and I mean, it varies. It depends on the people in the district.
Okay.
You know, how they agree and how quickly they work things out, so.
Well, when
Is it-
it's,
I'm sorry, go ahead. No.
when it's time, I will definitely support this initiative, so I'll wait for my colleague, John.
I just, does this, if we go forward, I think we should, if it looks like the district would be appropriate, does it have to go to the voters then, or can we do that by municipality?
There's two ways, actually.
The answer is maybe.
Yeah. There are two ways to form one, yeah.
And the feasibility study will probably clarify some of that too. So when the feasibility study is done in 6 months, then if everyone is in agreement, the real work starts to actually form the district. The county prosecutor probably will have to be involved because the district would be a separate political entity.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
With a member from each location, each town. But there are different ways that they do it based on us being a city. A lot of townships come together in this regard and they already have millage, so there are a couple different factors financially how it can work out. But
That's all
odds are
part
it
of the
could go
study.
in front of the voters.
Right.
The study would delineate all those
Yes.
issues for us and how the,
Options,
Yeah,
and chances are it would go to the voters, which is a good thing. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm not opposed to
And
that.
it's a little complicated because, of course, our fire department is mainly supported through our income tax. Most townships have property tax that supports their fire departments, so that difference plus the difference in assets will determine how the district gets funded. And it may be different for one member of the district, such as us. We may make a contribution from income tax rather than property tax, but that's the sort of thing that would be looked at and determined after the feasibility study's done.
But with a district, it all has to be fair and equitable, so
Right.
that's what you figure out, which is where I throw in my 2 cents of a good financial accountant person and lawyers, and that side of it needs to be a good business deal. Right.
So our contribution may be the equivalent of a certain millage. If the millage applied to the
And income
townships,
tax.
what the millage
Sure.
would be here, but our contribution may be from our income tax.
Yep. So, they gave a lot of good examples and information, and we are not alone even up in this region of the state. There are a lot of areas trying to figure out how to provide the service without the volunteer type department, so, or with a smaller one, I should say.
So at this point, you just need a motion to proceed
Participate
with
in the study.
participating in the study, but we don't know what the cost would be, so we're just.
And that will be another approval
Another vote.
down the road, yes.
So I'll
To
move
get the
to do
information.
just
I'll
that.
second.
All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for that. We'll keep you updated. First, under old business, we have a public hearing for ordinance 03-18, ordinance amending the municipal zoning map of the city of Waterville to change the zoning classification of a certain 2-acre parcel of land, part of parcel number 9625991, located directly south of 8011 Dutch Road from A1 Agricultural District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District. First reading was February 12th. Our second reading was February 26th. Our third reading was held March 12th. And our public hearing and legislative action is for this evening. So we're going to open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments out there? Any public comments up here for council? All right. Always feel it's hard to close it in less than a minute. Close the public hearing over there. Got the time, Melissa? All right. All right. So we will need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mayor Rode?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
Thank you. Under new business, we have ordinance 08-18, ordinance amending section 331.45C2 of the traffic code with respect to permitting the use of golf carts and other low-speed vehicles on public streets within the city of Waterville. Our first reading scheduled for this evening, our second reading scheduled for April 23rd, our third reading and legislative action scheduled for May 14th. And do we have any updates on this? I know there was a discussion last meeting, Mr. Bagdonis.
Yes, thank you. After the discussion from the last council meeting, we were asked to prepare an amendment to our existing ordinance pertaining to golf carts and other low-speed vehicles, and so this ordinance reflects what I believe the discussion was, and it simply amends the one section to expand the streets that golf carts are permitted to travel on to those 35-mile-an-hour streets if all of the abutting properties are either residential, farmland, or vacant. And as the ordinance currently says, the vehicles will be permitted to cross intersecting streets that have higher speeds as long as they remain on a permitted street.
Thank you. Have any comments? This is our first reading. That added?
If I may, Mayor.
Yes.
Public Safety did discuss this, and I think in general, there was a consensus of approval. They did not take an actual vote on it, but we discussed it, and I think the one common denominator was just caution and monitor it, but I think Tim Guzman's the one said, I'm not gonna stop this, but just be careful, that's all.
Yeah. And I just had a quick question on the, because I missed the discussion, on the 35, so there are only so many streets that are 35. Some of them switch from residential to some commercial thrown in. So if there's commercial, like on Michigan, they wouldn't be allowed to go up on that part of the street.
Right. Correct.
That's the thinking. Okay.
That's the thinking. We were supposed to get a map, but maybe that's something will be forthcoming. And then I would recommend that we would highlight the roads that they're not allowed to be on rather than the ones that they're supposed to.
But that'll be partial roads is what I'm saying,
Right.
like on Michigan.
Right.
Okay.
And then that would be given to the golf cart owners when they come for their inspection, or we can advertise on our Channel 5 that, you know, they need to make sure that they're compliant with the law, and they need to come to the police department and get the proper information to operate their vehicle properly. Yeah, essentially, it's just,
So essentially, you still would not be able to drive to Kroger because Prairie Boulevard has
correct.
commercial in Michigan.
No, I can't get to Kroger.
Yeah.
Well, besides that,
I'm just thinking of things that are gonna come up here.
No.
where Prey intersects Waterville, Monclova, Waterville, Monclova is 45.
Right. All right.
Maybe not tonight, but I wouldn't mind hearing from the chief. Maybe welcome tonight or after the second reading. It's up to you, chief.
Have we had any tickets?
He normally wouldn't be here at the next meeting. So.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's do it tonight then.
Did you have a question
Well,
or?
no,
Have we had any
first of all, I'm not in favor. I don't know how you feel about it, but I wondered. My thing, but first of all, I think the ordinance or the ordinance, yes, would apply to all slow-moving vehicles, not just golf carts. So any vehicle
Right.
that is a less than speed vehicle,
Low speed or underspeed vehicles?
low speed or underspeed, would fall into this provision. And I guess my concern is that, particularly on Michigan and River Road, which really are the only two streets I think that we're really dealing with for this.
Waterville, Monclova has sections.
That's 45.
Farnsworth.
Oh, Farnsworth, right?
Yeah, it's
Farnsworth.
35.
And then
They can cross
Waterville,
over.
Monclova,
Parts of
roughly
it.
south of Farmview.
It's 35.
But it has a business on part of it.
So as I understand what did you call them, these vehicles?
Low speed or
Low
underspeed
speed.
vehicles?
Maybe they go 20 miles an hour. They're really not built to go any faster, I think, a golf
They're-
cart in particular than 20. in particular.
The revised code, I think, defines an underspeed vehicle as maximum of 20 miles an hour.
So if they're traveling in a 35 zone at 20 miles an hour, there's going to be a car eventually that comes up behind them
Or a truck.
at 35 or 45 miles an hour. 45, of course, breaking the speed limit, but nevertheless going 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, but
And
realistically, 35, yes.
yeah. So it seems to me we're just asking for trouble in that situation. I don't think our streets, they call them golf carts, I guess, for a reason. and that's because they usually are around and on golf courses. I don't think our city is designed to accommodate golf carts, personally, or other, you know, low-speed vehicles.
And the way the ordinance is worded, my reading of it is that if you have a 35-mile-an-hour zone that starts here and ends at another street or ends here, if there's a business anywhere in that 35, that street's prohibited.
Correct.
That leaves just one street in the whole city that applies to, and that's North River Road. There's not another 35-mile-an-hour speed limit in town that doesn't somewhere in that 35 have a business. Even South River's got the back of Heritage.
I think the way it's written, it says that portion of the 35-mile-an-hour street.
See, that's
So
gonna be
if you have a origin and destination for your golf cart that is totally within the residential portion of the 35, you're okay.
Right.
But if your destination passes by a business, then you're not okay.
See? And you're creating an enforcement headache for us for, you know, what portion and, you know, where did he come from, where's he going, that kind of thing. So, and on streets like Michigan Avenue and Farnsworth where there's curbs, there's no place for him to get off to get out of the way. So
Those aren't legal anyways.
you're creating a hazard there because the cars are just gonna have to stay behind him or they're gonna have to try to pass.
Right.
So,
The way
When-
that,
Those are already illegal.
yeah, they are,
Yeah, those aren't even legal anyways. That's,
they are, there's residential on Michigan.
there's residential. If
From
you
the bottom
interpret it that
of
way.
the light down here all the way up to where commercial starts at, there's a business by Sweet Retreat, that's all residential. Technically, up to Cedar, you could be on your golf cart, but I do have a concern on Farnsworth and Michigan in that section that the curbs are there because I remember when there weren't any curbs there when I moved to
And
town.
Waterville and Clovis the same
But
way.
now,
for
I
much of
worry
it.
about you getting over out of the way.
When we did this back in the fall, and none of this has been pointed out already, when we did this back in the fall, we said we'd give it a year to see what kind of data we developed. And then we went into the winter months when nobody's driving their golf carts anyway. So now we're just getting into the warm months to see what's gonna happen, and we're already looking at making a change when we have no history to even base it on. You know, I'd say, let's at least give it the summer and let's see what happens, see if we have any kind of a problem before we start tinkering with something that we have no data on yet.
Well, technically, as the law is written now, you can't be out on the streets,
On the 35s, correct.
correct?
Yep.
So, and I can list a handful of citizens that have been on the streets. Have they been issued citations?
Not that I'm aware of.
Should they be issued citations?
I don't know of any violations. I mean, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I mean, been on the 35s?
I've been in, garage sales and golf cart pulls up and I asked them, I said, is that legal? They were like, in the state of Ohio, it's legal. I was like, oh, I didn't think so.
Well, they're legal on all the 25-mile-an-hour
All the
streets.
25s.
Yeah. Have we had any that have been inspected though? Don't
We
they-
have had no calls for inspections, no. They don't have to come to us. They have to go to a law enforcement agency. It doesn't have to be us.
Oh, okay, doesn't have to be you, okay.
Well, how do you expect to gather data? I'm curious about that. If currently anybody in Waterville that owns a golf cart is only allowed to be on streets with 25 miles per hour, I don't think anybody's gonna be on their golf cart. Maybe one I can think of.
Even most of the streets with 25-mile-an-hour speed limits have curbs. And since they're limited to 20, there's gonna be cars coming up behind them and wanna get around them. I certainly don't wanna gather data by seeing how many people get killed on the 35 just to see what happens. I mean, we're talking about a 700 to 800 pound golf cart with virtually no protection for the occupants versus vehicles which are getting larger and heavier with the trend toward SUVs and trucks and smaller cars disappearing. And I certainly don't wanna see somebody stretched out on the road just to see if that's what's gonna happen.
No, I certainly don't wanna see that either.
I don't think the golf cart owners want to be.
No, I don't either.
Hit either.
I don't either. I realize what they want. They want the freedom to use the golf carts. But
To get to
I
town.
think there's some places where that type of vehicle is just not appropriate.
They just wanna get to town.
Well, again, the problem with any type of vehicle, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You'll find these idiots out there, they'll have consumed too much alcohol, they won't be paying certainly from a legal perspective, putting them on a 35-mile-an-hour street is not necessarily a good idea at all, because, as the chief pointed out, you're gonna be in court, well, I was only going from here to here, where did you see him, officer? Well, I only saw him there. Oh, well, okay, I'm not sure we can give him a citation now, because that little portion of that little street might have had 35, but there was a residence, and I was gonna turn in that and get off before I got to the business. I mean, I can see when you go to court, it's gonna be a headache.
Yeah, it's creating an enforcement headache for us with any kind of a case that we can take to court and have a hope of, because there is such a confusion factor with, it's okay here, but not here, and because there's a business here and there's houses there, and it's gonna be very confusing for, not only for us, but for the drivers.
Well, if you look at it objectively, from what I've heard in the conversation, there may be 10 golf carts and 5,000 plus residents, so you're gonna be hurting the 5 for the benefit of the 8, and the 8 may get run over and killed.
I really don't know what we're trying to accomplish, actually, Barb, if you don't mind my saying so, because.
Accommodate some residences. That's essentially what I'm hoping to do with this piece of legislation. Not create a nightmare for our law enforcement. I appreciate your input. I am curious, so, you know, currently cyclists are allowed on the road and they create a hazard. I mean, you have a group of cyclists and you have to treat them like a car. You can't pass them if they're going this speed. You have to go behind them, or if you want to pass them, there's always going to be driving hazards. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm gonna be, you know, mulling it over. But I'm just, my effort in doing this is to get some citizens that live in pockets in this. There'll still be pockets where they can't get out. Like I said at our last council meeting, you're not gonna be able to accommodate everybody all the time. But I do believe in the government for the people, by the people. And I don't want to be restrictive in that, and I want to be safety conscious. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this happen. I would like to see a map, I suppose, maybe at our next meeting, and just be more restrictive in certain roads.
What do you want shown on this map?
Roads that they are not allowed to be on.
Presently?
Michigan, Farnsworth,
Waterville, Monclova.
Waterville, Monclova.
You mean
Prairie
currently,
Boulevard.
or with this proposal?
With this proposal. I know it can't be anywhere right now, except on South River. I think that's it.
Well, all the neighborhoods. They can cruise the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They just
But
can't
they-
cross the streets.
They can cross the streets.
They can
in the
cross the
neighborhoods.
streets, they
Turn
just
on
can't
them.
drive on them.
Right.
Can't cross the
They can
streets.
cross the higher speed limit streets, they just can't drive on those streets.
Right, so
There's
it has
nowhere
to
for
line
them to
up.
cross.
Legally.
There's businesses everywhere they would cross.
No, but the current ordinance allows them to directly cross higher speed limit streets. As they're going from a 25 to a 25, they can cross.
Even if there's a business.
Right. The way the ordinance is written right now, they can directly cross.
So how'd all that business stuff get in there? I was just curious.
That only came in because that's what I was instructed to do with the 35-mile-an-hour streets. It was not to be the entire length of a 35-mile-an-hour street, only where there were residences adjacent to it. And in fact, I think we discussed Michigan and Farnsworth, that there are
Those are the two.
businesses interspersed there.
Yeah. And if it's a 25-mile-per-hour street and there is business,
It doesn't matter.
that doesn't apply. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments for first reading?
I have a technical point.
Yes.
I think the second line, after the 35 miles per hour, is right in the middle of the second line.
Mm-hmm.
You should add or less.
Or less, if all the properties abutting that one?
No, the second line of, any portion of the city street where the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less.
No. because then that would add the,
Business
commercial
restriction.
restriction to the 25-mile-an-hour
Yeah.
streets.
No, that, you'd still have the restriction. The problem, if it's 30, the speed limit is 35 miles per hour, maybe we should say posted speed then. How about that, posted speed limit? Because it could be read to say, correct me if I'm wrong here, council, if it's 45 miles per hour, it is 35 miles per hour. Arguably. If you can go 45, or 45, you can go 35. You see what I mean? To me, it's a little less than clear what speed limit would be allowed.
I'm not following that.
Well, you could go 35 and a 45 if you chose, but you could go 10.
But we're talking about the street where the speed limit is
Yeah.
35.
Right.
The actual speed limit.
So it's not,
So it can't be
it's not
45, it's gotta
the
be 35.
Just your
speed
driving
that the cars are
25.
driving,
It's the posted speed
post-
limit, like
Right.
you
Yeah,
said.
that's right.
The absolute limit.
We could add posted.
Yeah,
Posted.
that's what John said too. Yeah.
Posted.
But we don't wanna say or less.
No, not or less.
Okay. Or the posted, okay.
I'll defer to council.
All right. Any other comments?
Well, yeah, I just want council to consider this. So essentially, they're operating now. We see them out there. I've seen them out there, especially on garage day, you know, the community garage sales. So they can stay in their neighborhoods and they can cross a 35-mile-per-hour street if it's right directly across.
Across, yes.
Okay? So what this legislation does, it does open it up somewhat because it's still very limiting in where they can go. So just consider that. And I think until we see a map and you drive around and you consider what's being proposed here, it'll give you a clearer picture.
I think you might still be landlocked with what it says in here, I guess is what I was pointing out earlier, but
Well, I think you're right.
Look
'cause
at
I'm
it for
thinking
some.
South River Road, I mean, you got the
Besides
doctor's
that.
office down there. I mean,
Well, but that's 25, so that,
It doesn't apply.
by Dr. Dode, yeah,
Yeah,
that's already
okay.
25.
Okay.
It doesn't apply.
Yeah, it wouldn't apply there.
got it.
all right, well, we'll consider that unless you've got anything else to add.
Not at this time, thank you.
All right, resolution 16-18 is a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to award a contract to the Dotson Company to construct a salt storage building for the Public Works Department. And I was informed that we are gathering more information on this, so we will save that.
Well, I'd ask council to actually pass a motion to remove that from the agenda for this meeting. We need to do some more research, and we're not quite ready to award that contract at this point.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next we have resolution 17-18, a resolution authorizing participation in the Ohio Department of Transportation Summer Contract 418 through 19 for road salt for winter season 2018 through 2019. It's time to buy salt again. It's still winter here, so.
Might need it.
Well, I haven't been wrong yet, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and predict snow next winter. And ice. And so it is time for us to authorize our participation in the cooperative purchasing arrangement with ODOT for purchase of salt for next winter season. We've been doing this for quite a few years, and it's been very advantageous for us to piggyback on ODOT's contract.
Yeah, our prices seemed a bit better. All right, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have resolution 18-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to execute a license agreement with Metro FC of Toledo LLC, a domestic for-profit limited liability company regarding the use of a certain portion of Prairie Trail Park. And we had a discussion about this earlier. So we'll need a motion and a second, and we will add an amendment to attach a new map. How would you like that stated?
Correct. What it would be passed is subject to the presentation of the amended map as discussed in the meeting.
Melissa, do you have that? All right, she's
The presentation of the amended
map,
As presented in the meeting.
so that will be the motion.
As presented in the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the wording. All right, we will get that from Metro. So we need a motion and a second.
I'll move accordingly.
All right.
Second.
Any other questions or comments on this?
The only thing I have, and I don't want to gum up the situation, but I think somewhere in the communication between the two of you, I understood that sometimes, believe it or not, I used to play football. They tell you that. But no, seriously, sometimes you want to move the field a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, or north or south, just because it becomes muddy. And so I want some kind of a general understanding that there might be the need to move it, 1 week, 50 feet or 60 feet, just to eliminate, safety of the kids. So as long as that's not a really disruption to the concept, the spirit of it.
I would suggest too, if there's any big movement, come back to administration
Yeah.
and, amend it.
As I've been sitting here, would it be better to not even put the goals on the map? And just say this section of the park, so that way we have what you're saying in the letter I sent
Room
you,
to
that
move.
soccer fields change directions, do not eat up the goal mouth, but we always agree to stay a certain distance away from the name, from their property. Would it just be easier to say this is the space
Probably.
we're allowed?
That
It's like, 'cause
would
we're-
obviously give
It sounds like-
flexibility. It's distance, I think you're concerned about, so as long as,
Yes, and I think if you stay as close to this, as far as this point of view of the gravel parking lot, and I think that would help you.
Because it
and
sounded like we
help
were talking
the
about where the
neighbors.
goal was placed, not the actual area that's being used.
why don't we make this easier? Why don't the two of you draw a map and get it back, and that'll be the one that defines the area. The goals could move within the area. It's closeness, it sounds like, to the
Proximity
residents
to
for the activity.
to the edge.
Because we're not gonna be able to go out there with a tape ruler and stretch this out
No.
every day and say the goal move 50 feet or you're
And
over
we
here.
don't want to start precedent, because we don't do it at Bear Park and we don't do it at Conrad, as he brought up. I started thinking about that, and my kids played all those sports, and those neighbors are really close to the action in the cars. So it's just part of what the parks are. I like seeing a little bit of soccer there, because I think it's nice to have them used a bit. We have some that are underutilized, so as long as it's within reason to be harmonious with the neighborhood. So I think we've reached a good understanding. We'll get the map. I like the distance idea within
Well, then
reason.
I would move the motion in the second and
All right,
add that we're going to attach a new Exhibit A, which will be some combination of the newer map and the older map as agreed to by the parties, and that's the area,
all right,
period.
all right.
I'll modify the motion accordingly.
Second. Good luck, Melissa. All right. Do we have?
I'm gonna attach a new exhibit A, combination of the newer map, and I'm sorry, what else?
And the existing map on the agreement.
The existing map.
Bad Yep.
We're gonna do it right now, I think.
Yes.
Melissa.
Cool. Good.
The map will
Go ahead and
just
vote on this.
define the soccer area, that's all.
All right, I have the maps in the back.
Map.
I have a motion.
There's a map.
Another motion. You got a motion.
Did we make a new motion?
No, wait.
He,
I amended the motion
He
to
amended it.
accommodate a map that will just define the area for soccer play.
all right. So we've got the motion, the second. Any further discussion? I think we've got it all handled.
Good Lord.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Barb, I'm sorry, you seconded again?
Yes.
So can I reread the motion?
Yes. Yep.
So, it's subject to the presentation, we're gonna attach a new exhibit A, which is a combination of the newer map and the existing map that defines the area of soccer play.
Sounds good. And it will be attached when they finish, so, yes. Okay. That's covered, because it will have an attachment. Thank you. Resolution 19-18 is a resolution extending the contract with Stevens Disposal and Recycling Service, Inc. for solid waste collection, disposal, and recycling. Mr. Bagdonis? All right. Sorry, we're going back to the
Yeah, I just noticed in the agreement, it does refer to
soccer goals.
each field. So I I guess, does that change anything that we just talked about?
No, we can locate the field within a large area, and
Okay.
they have the ability to move the field around.
That's fine with me. Okay,
We're on Stevens,
18.
thank you, Mayor.
1918.
Our
Contracts
current
is-
contract with Stevens Disposal will expire on May 31st of this year. That contract does include a provision that allows a one-year contract extension upon the mutual agreement of the city and the contractor if all of the other terms and conditions of the contract remain the same. And Stevens Disposal has requested a contract extension, and the cost per dwelling for the services would remain the same, and that's $10.21 per dwelling per month. And under this extension, it would remain in that amount until May 31st of 2019.
Thank you. We would need a motion and a second.
We
So
have a
moved.
representative from
Oh.
Stevens here if you.
Would you like to say a few words, or?
Not unless you guys have questions. We've been here for 9 years.
It's been 9 already? Oh,
2009, I believe.
shoot, I remember when we switched, yes, all right. We need a motion and a second, then we can do discussion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? I'll start with mine. I was on council, actually a comment, but you can go up there. See if you agree with me. No, I was on council when we had another trash service, and then we went out to bid, and then we switched. And I will say, from a customer service standpoint, I have had a lot of residents who have been very happy about it. And the few times I've been called in 9 years, or the last 7 years that I've been back, I think I've only been called twice. Once was my own house for some reason. But I will say they came right back and did whatever we asked. So I would ask council that's been around a while too, if you've had the same kind of feedback, which is a lot to say.
Yes,
for-
issues are gonna arise, doesn't
They
matter
do,
who
but
you use.
the fact they're
It's-
taking care of them and I have so few.
Right.
Yeah, they do a nice job, so,
I haven't had any complaints, so that's good feedbacks, and I think your crew does a great job.
yeah,
Good,
very
okay,
nice.
good, thank you. We appreciate the city's business.
So in light of that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, thank you for coming
Okay.
and sitting through the meeting.
Well, I'm gonna let myself out, folks.
Yes, we appreciate
Enjoy the
you.
rest of your meeting.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. Resolution 20-18 is a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to award a contract to statewide Ford Lincoln Van Wert, Ohio for the purchase of one 2018 Ford Utility Police Interceptor. And Mr. Bagdonis, this is a purchase that was in the budget.
Yes, in the budget, and this is through the state cooperative purchasing program.
Which is still our best deal, right?
Yes.
All right.
Is it the SUV, and what's an interceptor? I'm sorry.
That's just the fancy term for the police package.
Sounds
But
pretty
we're
cool.
getting the SUV, we're getting
Yes.
another
Yeah.
SUV like,
Yep.
okay. Just didn't know what
Alright.
that was.
So we need a motion.
So moved.
So, second.
Any discussion or questions, council?
Already approved the budget.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have Resolution 21-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to award a contract to American Fireworks Company in the amount of $18,900 for professional services relating to a display of fireworks on July 4th, 2018 for the city of Waterville. So we're awarding salt contracts and doing fireworks in the same meeting. I like it. So any update,
Summer
same
and
company, new company?
This happens to be the same company that did the display last year.
Okay. We need a motion.
So moved.
I'll
Mary?
second.
Any other questions, council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
There will be a check coming from the Red, White, and Boom
Committee.
to cover part of these costs.
Very nice.
I'm just waiting for some checks to clear, so.
The check is in the mail.
No, I'll actually bring
We've
it to
heard
you,
that
Jim.
one.
I'll bring it down.
We'll accept that donation. Resolution 22-18 is a resolution extending the approval of the preliminary plat for Waterville Meadows plats 9 through 14 subdivisions. Mr. Bagdonis, you have an update on that?
Yes, thank you. The developer, MB Investments, NWO LLC, submitted a preliminary plat for these subdivisions back in 2015. And Under our planning and zoning code, those approvals are effective for a maximum of 3 years. And the developer has plats 13 and 14 left to do and has requested an extension of the approval of the preliminary plat. And this did go through the planning commission, and they've recommended approval of the extension.
Thank you. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, council?
If we don't approve it, I'm just curious. I know we will, but
They would need to resubmit a preliminary plat for the 2 unfinished plats and
start all over again.
start all over with that process before they would be able to do a final plat. It's a 2-step process with a preliminary and a final. And the preliminary is mainly so that there's a lot of capital invested in preparing the plans and doing the infrastructure for the final plat, so they do the preliminary to give them a good indication that the final will be approved.
Thanks. Thanks.
Does that involve a filing? Yeah, filing fee. Yeah. All right, we have a motion? No, we need a motion. Did we get one yet? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
I already,
Sorry.
it's okay.
All those,
I can move again.
all right, nope, you moved enough. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any other information or unscheduled business for council?
We have 2 students.
Can I ask a question here about procedure?
Yes.
So with the spring upon us, what is the procedure for the bids for the subcontracting the grass mowing? Do we do that? I know he's talking right here. Okay.
Is there enough?
Hold on one second.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your work. We have a question from council about, with the warm weather in spring in the contracts,
Just
how that process happens with awarding those. Can you go up to the,
Do we go out every year? Do they
No.
bid?
I gotta pass you up.
No,
Okay, I didn't.
I know we don't do it every year.
Some good information here.
No, we go out every couple of years for bids. As Sean mentioned, his price has been steady over the past, I think since 2012, he hasn't had any increases. If somebody, like he asked me for a bid, I'll take a bid from him. But every couple of years, we'll go out. That's pretty much the way we've handled it.
Okay, and so, but what is we have to go out for bid when it's over 10,000, isn't that right?
No.
Is it 50,000? What is that?
I think it's 25.
25,000, okay. All right, I thought that 50 sounded high.
Hi.
Pass it on to
Okay,
them.
other than that, it's at the discretion of the administration, correct? Is that correct?
Underneath that amount.
Well,
That's what
anything
she's
over
asking.
$16,667 under our ordinance needs to be approved by council.
Okay.
So we don't even.
So if it's in the budget and it's under 16,667, then we can do it administratively.
And this contract is always under that amount.
Yes.
Okay, and so, in sealed bids only occur over that amount?
Over, well, 25,000 or more.
Okay, so if it's under, then it's not a sealed bid, correct? Am I just
Correct, doesn't
tracking
have to
with
be.
this? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Would be more. Is that together in 1 year?
I have no idea what.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, we'd have to look.
Well, mowing and snow plowing are 2 separate things.
All right, did that answer?
Yes, it did.
questions
Thank
so
you.
far? Okay.
Clarify.
Any other information? Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A little more excited.